A lot of people talk about how they were left in awe after watching the Death Star trench run in A New Hope back in 1977. Frankly, I think this entire space battle deserves that same level of respect. Before, it was just a dogfight. This is an actual battle. I just love how George Lucas took it to the next level with this battle. There are capital ships, medical frigates, frankly a bunch of other kinds of cruisers I don't know. This is what a battle is, while the Battle of Yavin is more like a fight, if that makes sense. I think this is the largest reason why people don't hate on Lucas as much for reusing the Death Star in the third movie, because the battles are so different. Lucas always said with each movie he wanted to push the boundaries of filmmaking, and here he certainly did that. I love how this TIE Interceptor couldn't make the same kind of turn as Wedge and just fly straight into the cruiser. Although this does bring up the question, does this Mon Cal cruiser have any shields? The TIE Interceptor flies right into the cruiser. I wonder if the shields are being used elsewhere, like by the bridge or the hull of the ship.
I have my orders from the Emperor himself. He has something special planned for him. We only need to keep him from escaping.
So Piet needs to hold off the rebels from escaping so the Emperor can use the Death Star to destroy some of the rebels' capital ships. Makes sense. But one thing that has always bothered me a bit with Star Wars space battles was any time a blockade of some kind was attempted. If the fight was happening on a two-dimensional surface, this would make sense. The rebels would need to go around the Empire's fleet in order to escape. But when you have a space battle, you're fighting in 3 dimensions. What's stopping these rebel cruisers from jumping into hyperspace in a different direction? I know you need to have hyperspace coordinates to properly enter hyperspace, but there has to be more than one hyperspace lane that you can leave and enter Endor from. Why don't the rebels use one of those other lanes if they needed to escape? I had the same thought in The Phantom Menace as well. Why not just go to the other side of the planet where there is no blockade and jump to hyperspace there?
As you can see, my young apprentice.
There he goes again, calling Luke his apprentice with Vader right there. How does this tie into the rule of 2? Some of these shots here when the Imperials are ready to fire the Death Star were reused from the same sequence in A New Hope. And we even get the interior shot of the Death Star firing with these 2 officers on this ledge. It's the same shot as the one in A New Hope, but flipped horizontally. You gotta be more creative than that, George Lucas. It's not even a fair fight here. The stormtroopers can't shoot people standing still, and they are getting beaten up by teddy bears. And also, Han only needs half a second to aim, and he gets a perfect headshot on a guy probably like 10 yards away. The skill gap here is just too much to overcome for the Empire. So R2 gets shot here, but in the next few shots, there is no blaster mark on him at all. There's no way the stormtrooper would have shot the wall given the angle where the stormtrooper was and how Han was using it as cover. Also, keep in mind, if R2 can survive a direct hit from Vader's TIE Fighter at the end of A New Hope, he can surely survive a shot from a blaster. This is one of the saddest deaths in Star Wars, and it's just some random Ewok. Poor guy. Realistically though, you'd think the Ewok would have been blown to pieces, but I get this is a PG movie.
I am defenseless. Take your weapon. Strike me down with all of your hatred.
Again, I'm just not big on this, that Luke would turn to the dark side instantly just cause he kills Palpatine. Later in the movie, Vader kills Palpatine out of love for his son. Can Luke not kill Palpatine out of love for his sister and his best friends? Everything else about this scene is perfect. Ian McDiarmid is perfect. I just don't vibe with this one aspect of the scene. So Vader blocks Luke's lightsaber and Palpatine laughs. It's an iconic scene, no doubt. But I'm curious what Palpatine actually wants here. So of course he and Vader both want Luke to turn to the dark side. Palpatine for the past minute has been egging Luke on to kill him so he can turn to the dark side. But if Luke kills Palpatine, then shocker, Palpatine is dead. Is he okay with this? If you put any weight into the ending of The Rise of Skywalker, at least they said Palpatine's essence would be transferred into Rey, whatever that means. But in Return of the Jedi, we don't know anything about that. So is Palpatine okay with dying here if it means Luke turns to the dark side? I don't know if Palpatine would really want that. Also, I just realized something pretty crazy in the lore. A Sith Master has only ever been killed by his or her apprentice. A Jedi or someone else has never been able to kill a Sith Master, during the Rule of Two era that is. So if Luke were to actually kill Palpatine, then that would be the first time a Master has ever been killed by a Jedi, at least since the Rule of Two has been a thing. So now thinking about the sequels, if you consider Snoke a Sith, his apprentice did kill him, so that means when Rey kills Palpatine in The Rise of Skywalker, Rey is the first Jedi to actually kill a Sith Master. Huh. This Tarzan-esque sound from Chewbacca is a sound I never want to hear again for the rest of my life. So here's a lore question. Can Chewbacca and the Ewoks understand each other? So we know Chewbacca speaks the Wookiee language Shiriwook, and I have no clue what language the Ewoks speak, but the point still stands. Can the Ewoks understand what a Wookiee is saying and vice versa? If not, from both perspectives, the other is just roaring at them. After the AT-ST with Chewbacca destroys this other AT-ST, the legs remain in a perfect standing position. I didn't major in physics, but I think the odds of this happening would be very slim. This one scout trooper is a moron. Usually this wire tripping thing only works if it's a very thin wire, not a whole ass rope. He should have been able to see this at least a few seconds before he got there. Also, realistically, this guy's body would have been sliced in half. Is it a common thing that AT-STs patrol across Endor? The reason I ask is because a lot of these traps the Ewoks have set up are perfect counters for AT-STs, but not much else. Like the two logs slamming into each other a few shots before. It's at the perfect height of an AT-ST. If the Ewoks have no knowledge of AT-STs, then that means they must have built these traps really quickly for them to be effective in battle. So all trilogy stormtroopers die from a single shot while wearing armor, but Leia can survive a shot right to the shoulder? Plot armor 101.
Stand up!
Damn, stormtroopers did it again. They asked the rebels to surrender for no good reason instead of killing them right on the spot. It didn't work earlier, why would they try it again? The war would be over if the stormtroopers just killed people on the spot. Now begins the best lightsaber fight in all of Star Wars.
Obi-Wan has taught you well.
Obi-Wan barely taught Luke anything, and basically nothing when it comes to sword fighting. I mentioned this earlier, but I would love for Vader to ask Luke, who the hell trained you to fight with a lightsaber since I last saw you? It couldn't have been Obi-Wan, I killed him.
Your thoughts betray you, Father. I feel the good in you.
I wish Luke said, your thoughts betray you, Father. I know how much me having the high ground scares you right now.
Destiny.
If you were to slow this down and zoom in really closely on this 1 second shot of Vader's lightsaber cutting part of the bridge, you would notice that the blade is actually coming out of the wrong end of Vader's lightsaber hilt. It's coming out of the bottom, not the top.
It's over, Commander. The rebels have been routed. They're fleeing into the woods.
You know, you'd think these Imperials would recognize each other and thus recognize that this dude on the screen is not an Imperial officer. Also, where is Han right now? In the previous shot outside the door, we see no one is standing there. Is Han inside an AT-ST? If he is, then these Imperials should know that he can't be an AT-ST pilot, because earlier when Chewbacca hijacked one, we saw what that pilot was wearing. They have these black visors. I'm curious to see how people who say the Empire was not that incompetent can defend this.
It is the only way you can save your friends.
Where exactly is Luke hiding right now? Is he just hiding behind a pillar? Is he hiding beneath one of these hexagonal things? I've always wondered where Luke was hiding because it was clearly a good enough spot to where Vader couldn't find him.
So, you have a twin sister.
Does Vader at this moment realize that his daughter was Princess Leia of Alderaan? If he can read into Luke's mind and knowing that he is thinking about his sister, does that mean he can know who his sister is? Also, I wonder if Palpatine overheard this. Is he thinking about how Darth Vader's daughter comes into play? Maybe that's why he's so willing to kill Luke later on, because he knows he has a backup plan with Leia.
If you will not turn to the dark side, then perhaps she will.
If you look really closely at Vader's left hand, it appears he is holding Luke's lightsaber. It's hard to tell, but again, that appears to be the head of Luke's saber. This makes me think of what scene was deleted to where Vader got control of Luke's lightsaber, especially since the literal next shot is of Luke igniting his lightsaber. I can never get out of my head how Luke's lightsaber doesn't destroy the railings here. Even though this is my favorite scene in all of Star Wars, this one little detail of Luke's saber bouncing off the railing is something I will forever notice. The sequence of Luke losing his mind and attacking Vader lasts just over 30 seconds, but man, I'm not sure if there are 30 seconds of any other lightsaber fight that hit harder to me than these 30 seconds. I just love the raw anger Luke is showing here, it's perfect. So here we have a shot of Luke's lightsaber, and it is clearly below the railing of the bridge. At least that's what the effect implies here. Then we get a few close-up shots of Luke and Vader's hand, but the next time we see Luke's lightsaber, the blade is above the railing. So considering the railing isn't cut, that means Luke must have moved his lightsaber back to raise it above the railing, right?
You failed, Your Highness. I am a Jedi, like my father before me.
Chills, chills, chills. God, I love Luke Skywalker, man. What an arc. And I love the shot of Palpatine afterwards. He is clearly shocked that someone resisted the dark side. This moment is so perfect. This maybe 2-minute sequence of Palpatine electrocuting Luke just speaks for itself. I could spend like a whole 5 minutes overanalyzing this, but I need to stop myself once in a while. I will say though that the shots of Vader here are so brilliant. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can say is nothing at all. These shots here are largely what sells us on Vader turning back to the light side. If you remove these shots and then cut to Vader throwing Palpatine over the ledge, it just doesn't work the same way. Moments like these just show how adding a few shots can really change the entire emotion of a scene. For those of you who didn't know, Vader yelling no here was a special edition change, and it's a change I hate. You have one of the best scenes in the franchise here. You don't need to change a thing. I just spoke about how the silence from Vader was so powerful. Him yelling no doesn't really change anything, but again, I just wish it wasn't here. Thanks to the rise of Skywalker, we now know that this large-ass explosion is because Palpatine transferred his Force essence into a secret but unfinished clone body all the way on Exegol. God, saying that out loud is so stupid. The rise of Skywalker, or anything for that matter, can never diminish this scene for me, but it does make me chuckle, that's for sure.
Here goes nothing.
You think the Empire would have learned their lesson by now? Barricade the damn thing and you'll be fine.
Split up and head back to the surface. And see if you can get a few of those TIE fighters to follow you.
This is a pretty dumbass strategy from Lando here. If the Imperials have even half a brain cell, they would know that the rebels are going for the center of the station to blow it up. Why would they bother chasing some of the rebels that are going back to the surface? Focus all efforts on stopping the ships that are going to the station's core.
What? Right now?
I'll follow up on this in a few months when I talk about The Force Awakens, but in that movie, the Falcon actually does have a different antenna. Neat way to follow up on the antenna getting knocked off here. Also, I would have loved to have seen Han's reaction to learning that Lando did technically scratch the Falcon. Ah yes, a single A-Wing can crash into the cockpit of a Super Star Destroyer and the whole thing will instantly collapse. If you look closely, you can even see fire in space. That's wild.
I'll not leave you here. I've got to save you.
You already have.
Okay, out of respect for this scene, I am not going to overanalyze it. If you have seen some of the videos on the Goldman, you would know that this scene here of Vader's death is not just my favorite scene in the movie, it's not just my favorite scene in the Star Wars franchise, it is my favorite scene in any movie or show I have ever watched. This scene is what Star Wars is to me. Family, love, and redemption. I can think of only 4 scenes in any movie or show that make me cry on the spot, and this scene is one of them. Thank you, George Lucas, for creating the most powerful moment of storytelling I have ever consumed. But I will say this, Vader had eyebrows in the original version, but they were CGI'd out in this special edition. Ah, victory at last. Although, as we saw earlier in the film, the Empire did have a pretty big fleet. What happened to it? I know the Executor was destroyed, but what about all the other capital ships? Were they all destroyed too? Did they get caught in the explosion of the Death Star? Did they flee once they saw the Death Star was destroyed? That fleet was big enough to where it could still put up a fight.
He's my brother.
I love Han's reaction here, but frankly, if it was me, I would be so confused. I had just spent 4 years with these two. I saw them meet for the first time. I even saw the two kiss, and now they are siblings? I'd be like, what the hell did I miss while I was in Carbonite? I love this moment. I'm glad Vader didn't get some big funeral where people were there just because he saved Luke. The intimacy of Luke having one last moment with his father is something I love. So all these shots of the planets we have seen throughout the series are of course special edition changes, but they do have some impact on the lore. To see the capital of the Empire have parades because of the fall of the Empire makes me wonder how big the support for the rebellion really was. Would the rebellion really have been screwed if they lost the Battle of Endor? Because if the damn capital of the Empire is throwing this big of a celebration, that means thousands of planets must have been willing to support the rebellion as well. Two comments here. One, I vastly prefer the new Victory Celebration theme that's playing over the Yub Nub song in the original. Second, as someone who is quite the sequel defender, even I admit it is a little sad to know how south things go after this moment. And this is also the last time we will ever see Luke and Han together on screen. But hey, at least this moment is still great. Cute moment seeing all these Force ghosts. I know it was controversial at the time, but I've moved on from Hayden Christensen being added to this movie. I guess I would prefer the original actor, but again, I'm over it. What I will complain about is how Vader should not be a Force ghost. He had no clue this was even possible. It's implied in Revenge of the Sith that Yoda and Obi-Wan needed to train to become ghosts. So how Vader was able to become a ghost is beyond me. And that is Star Wars Return of the Jedi. Of the originals, it's probably my least favorite, but it is still a great movie, and as I said a few minutes ago, it contains my favorite scene in all of cinema, so I owe this movie that. For those who have watched all 15 overanalyzing episodes I have done on the original trilogy, thank you for being a part of this journey. I made a promise that I will continue this series through all 3 prequel movies and all 3 sequel movies, and I plan on keeping that promise. So we still have at least another 30 episodes left to go. Click on the link here to watch Overanalyzing Star Wars The Phantom Menace Part 1. If you don't see the link, the video hasn't come out yet. Thank you everyone so much for watching another one of my videos. Don't forget to unite the Clot Squad, and I will see you guys next time.